I have replaced 2 water heaters, 1 roof, 3 car engines, and an entire kitchen floor in my lifetime. I did not expect my hip to be next. The surgeon, a young man named Dr. Leonard, who spoke with the calm confidence of someone who had performed the procedure 800 times, told me a hip replacement at 78 was very routine. He said it the way people say minor surgery when it is not their body on the table. I nodded politely. I have been nodding politely at people for 78 years. It may be my greatest skill, and it has never once served me well. My name is Albert Walker. I was an engineer for 40 years. I know exactly how much weight a structure can carry before something gives. I simply never expected to apply that knowledge to my own children. I told all 3 of them about the surgery 6 weeks in advance. Hold on to that number. Not 6 hours, not 6 days. 6 full weeks. 42 days during which any one of them could have circled a date, arranged a babysitter, requested time away from work, or driven down Interstate 65 to Bowling Green, Kentucky, to sit beside their father before he went under general anesthesia at 78 years old. Raymond, my oldest, called first. "Don't worry, Dad," he said. "We'll all be there." Then, with admirable efficiency, he asked whether I had spoken to anyone about the current value of the house on Sycamore Lane. Just curiosity, naturally, just making conversation. Bella sent a 4-minute voice message. I listened 3 times, not because it moved me, but because I kept waiting for a concrete plan to appear. Work was impossible. Her husband had obligations. The children had school activities. She would absolutely, certainly, definitely find a way to come. She said, "Of course, Dad," 4 times, which works out to approximately 1 declaration of sincerity per minute, without the inconvenience of action. Then there was Nora. She called 3 weeks before the operation and asked how I felt. "Nervous," I said, "but ready, that's good." Then came a pause I had known since she was 19. She was short on rent. Could I help? Nora was 30 years old. I said yes because I was her father, and because I had always said yes. I transferred the money while she remained on the phone. "Thanks, Dad. Feel better." Then she hung up. On the morning of my operation, I woke at 5:15 in the house on Sycamore Lane. Large houses have a particular kind of silence when only one person lives in them, not peaceful silence, silence with weight. I made coffee I was not permitted to drink, and sat by the window while the sun painted the trees in that thin Kentucky gold October sometimes gives us. I remember thinking that if something went wrong, the last conversation I would ever have with my youngest child was one in which she asked for rent money. Then I ordered a ride to the hospital. I handed my phone to a nurse named Gloria and went into surgery alone. They kept me 13 days. Dr. Leonard's definition of routine included pain that introduced itself in the night like an unwelcome guest, a walker, a bedpan, and the humiliation of needing help with things I had done independently since childhood. There is also a specific loneliness found only in hospitals, not solitude. I have made peace with solitude. This was fluorescent loneliness, machines beeping, carts rattling through corridors, the voices of other people's families behind half-closed doors, and beside my bed a blue vinyl chair. It was slightly crooked on its left leg and tilted almost imperceptibly to one side. I looked at it every day. Raymond called on day 2 and day 5. On day 2, he asked how I felt. On day 5, he asked whether my financial documents were properly organized. "No rush, Dad, just thinking ahead." I told him everything was labeled, dated, and filed. I had been an engineer for 40 years. My paperwork had better organization than most municipal governments. Bella called daily through day 6. Each conversation lasted roughly 4 minutes and consisted of explanations for why she had not arrived and promises about when she would. There was traffic, a stomach illness, a school play that turned out to be a rehearsal, a work deadline that shifted. On day 7, she promised she would come on day 9. On day 9, she sent a text. "Dad, I'm so sorry. Something came up. I'll explain everything. Love you." I placed the phone on the bedside table and looked at the empty blue chair. Something shifted inside me. Not rage, not tears, something quieter. The way a foundation moves, slowly, permanently, and beneath the surface. Nora did not call once. On day 7, Gloria came in to check my blood pressure. She was in her 50s and carried the efficient warmth of someone who had witnessed every version of human nature. She glanced at the chair. "Do you have family, Mr. Walker?" "Yes," I said. I smiled when I said it. She nodded the way people nod when they understand what you have not said. Before leaving, she squeezed my hand once. "You press that call button any time." I have thought about that hand squeeze every day since. On day 13, a volunteer wheeled me to the hospital entrance. I ordered an Uber. The driver helped me to my front door with my walker, discharge papers, and white pharmacy bag. After he left, I stood on the porch, looking at the door I had hung myself in, 1989. The brass handle I had replaced twice. The small crack in the upper panel I kept meaning to repair. Then I went inside. The house was exactly as I had left it. That is not a simple thing. When you live alone, disappear into a hospital for 13 days, and return to find everything untouched, it means no one came. Not to water the plant, not to collect the mail, not to stand for 5 minutes in the rooms where you lived and wonder whether you were coming home. No one came. I made tea and sat in my chair by the window. I thought about the blue vinyl chair in room 114. I thought about Gloria asking whether I had family. I thought about Nora saying, "Thanks, Dad, feel better." Then I called Michael Simmons, my attorney of 26 years. It was time to do some engineering. Engineers do not react, we respond. Reaction is a slammed door or a shouted sentence you cannot retrieve. Response is measured. You examine the load, identify the weakness, and design the appropriate structural correction. Michael listened for 11 minutes without interrupting. When I finished, he asked, "Albert, are you certain?" "I've been certain since day 7. He said he would prepare the documents. 6 weeks after my discharge, I invited all 3 children to dinner. I made their mother's cornbread from scratch. Some recipes are memories, and I was generous enough to share mine. Raymond arrived first with an expensive bottle of wine and the energy of a man who had rehearsed his entrance. He hugged me, then inspected the crown molding, fireplace, built-in shelves, countertops, and appliances. "The house looks great, Dad. It looks the same." "I know. I just mean, it looks great." Bella arrived nearly on time with a store-bought peach cobbler and a detailed explanation of why she had failed to visit. There were references to illnesses, school calendars, her husband's schedule, and a plumbing problem I am reasonably certain never existed. She said, "I felt terrible," 3 times. People who truly feel terrible usually move heaven and earth to avoid doing the terrible thing. I listened patiently and said I understood. She exhaled. I passed the cornbread. Nora arrived 38 minutes late, kissed my cheek, checked her phone, and asked what was in the pot. She did not mention the operation. I watched Raymond studying the room, Bella laughing too quickly, Nora eating with the relaxed contentment of someone unaware she was being evaluated. Then I put down my fork. "The surgery got me thinking," I said. "At my age, it makes sense to organize my affairs. Michael and I have been making sure everything is arranged for when the time comes." The table changed, only slightly, but engineers notice load-bearing shifts. "That sounds sensible," Raymond said. "Very responsible," Bella added. I picked up the serving dish. More cornbread. What followed unfolded exactly as properly designed structures tend to unfold. Raymond began calling every Sunday at precisely 10. He asked about my health, appetite, sleep, knee, hip, Raymond. Then, after 15 minutes of devoted son performance, he would casually mention property taxes, reverse mortgages, financial advisors, or real estate values. Just practical matters. Just thinking ahead. Bella started bringing groceries every Thursday. Real groceries. My brand of coffee, the wheat bread I preferred, the soup she knew I liked. She was thoughtful, warm, genuinely pleasant company, and I felt grief, not for the woman sitting across from me, but for the version of her who could have sat in the blue chair on day 3, day 6, or day 10. That Bella had existed all along. She had simply needed an inheritance to introduce us. Even Nora began texting, "Hey Dad, how are you? Cold out, stay warm." Once she sent a photograph of a sunset without explanation. I believe it was her version of poetry. I answered every message in complete sentences with proper punctuation, because I was raised correctly. I never mentioned the hospital. I gave them nothing to defend against, apologize for, or negotiate. I did not need apologies. I needed understanding. And understanding is sometimes achieved more effectively through consequence. The consequence was already signed. There are now 3 charities in my will where 3 children's names once appeared. The first supports veterans who held themselves together when nobody came for them. The second funds an engineering scholarship at Western Kentucky University, because a young mind given the proper tools is the most durable structure I know how to build. The third supports children in hospital rooms, because children did not choose to be there. The house on Sycamore Lane will be sold, and the proceeds will go to those organizations. There is also a handwritten letter. It says, "By the time you read this, you will have questions. I want to answer the one that matters most. I was hospitalized for 13 days following my hip replacement. The surgery occurred on October 4th. I was discharged October 17th. I came home in a car I ordered from my phone. I told you 6 weeks in advance. I want to be precise about that. 6 weeks. I do not write with anger. I write because you deserve to know the exact load-bearing reason for every decision in this document. In engineering, we call it transparency. In families, I suppose it has other names. I love you. That part never changed. Albert Walker. Bella still visits. One March morning, she arrived in the yellow jacket she knew I liked, carrying coffee cake and calling Dad, even though she could see me on the porch. We talked about her daughter's science project, grocery prices, and spring planting. She was good company. She always was when she came. I looked at her in the March light and thought how completely lovable she was. That is not a contradiction. You can love someone and still change your will. You can love someone completely and refuse to pretend 13 days of empty chairs were something other than what they were. The groceries and yellow jacket have worked in the human ways. They returned a version of my daughter I had missed. The paperwork simply does not know about the yellow jacket. Raymond continues calling at 10 on Sundays. Right on schedule, he mentions a nearby house selling above asking price. Just interesting, he says. Just thinking about the market. I know, Raymond. Nora surprised me most. She called one Tuesday and asked if I wanted lunch. I feel like I don't know you very well, she said. Is that strange? It was the truest thing she had said in years. It was also approximately 5 months too late. But I am her father. I am 78, and the dogwood was beginning to bloom. I'd like that, I told her. We sat in a diner for 2 hours. She ordered pancakes. I ordered eggs. She told me about the man she was dating and a career change she was considering. Then she asked what I had actually built during my years as an engineer. I told her about a bridge project, a water treatment facility, and a failed stress calculation I once had to explain to a room full of impatient men. I never knew any of that, she said. You never asked. I said it gently, accurately. After a moment, she looked at her pancakes. I'm sorry I didn't come to the hospital. I've been trying to figure out how to say that. I looked at my child and felt the full weight of parenthood. Love that does not require deserving. A wound that does not require drama. Forgiveness that is not the same thing as forgetting. I know, I said. I did not say it was fine because it was not. I did not tell her about the will. We continued talking. It is April now, and I work among the rose bushes along the south fence. They return every year without drama, announcement, or need for recognition. My children believe they are inheriting this house. They are not. They are inheriting Saturday mornings, cornbread, phone calls, and a father who remains warm despite everything. That is what I have available. That is what I have chosen to give. A cardinal sometimes lands on the porch railing and regards me with the regal indifference of a creature unburdened by expectation. I raise my coffee cup to him. He stays a few seconds and leaves entirely on his own terms. The most important work in engineering is often invisible. The calculation before the pour. The stress test before construction. The measurement no one notices until a building has stood for 50 years. I built my house well. I maintained it carefully. And in October, sitting in my kitchen with a walker, a cup of tea, and 13 days of clear information about the people I raised, I made one final calculation. When the time comes, Michael will open a file and everything will go precisely where I decided it should. Engineers call that a sound structure. My children, God love them, will call it something else. But I will not be there to hear it. The will is written, the rose bushes are blooming, everything is exactly where it needs to be.